Kenzie. I'm here. This is Jo. Hi. And I'm here with Cathy and Emily. Hello.
Hello. My voice sounded really weird then. What was that all about?
This is how you sound when I edit the videos. It's video and that's how you sound. Tonight I'll be presenting a case. And Emily and Cathy are going to chime in and give opinions. Yeah. Buzzing. First of all, I want to start with thanking all of you who listen and everyone who follows us on Instagram because we hit 600 followers. Yay! Go us. Thank you very much. You guys. That's why we do it. So we find like-minded people and we can just no, John. We just find like-minded people and we can, share our interests and also make some money.
I was going to say educate, but okay, we're going down that route.
No, we got educate. I literally wrote. Ellen popped into my head saying, sharing some joy, but literally the opposite. Sharing some misery and death.
Anyway, it's interesting, I suppose. I mean, I don't like hearing about these things, but at the same time, I like learning about it. It's like a weird emotion, isn't it?
It's like interesting, isn't it? It's fascinating. Yeah. That's what it is. It's fascinating. Like, because we don't just understand it is the interesting part. I think. Yeah, I'd say so because I don't think at this mindset of mine now, I can't imagine doing anything like that.
No, that's just it, isn't it? The psychology behind it. Yeah.
So thank you very much. Awesome. Okay, well we dive in.
Dive into the topic.
Yeah, so tonight we'll be talking about the murder of Kenzie Houk and her unborn child. Oh. And the case is especially difficult because the person arrested and charged with the murder, or the double murder, is Kenzie's fiance's 11-year-old son, Jordan Brown.
What?
Yeah. Have you heard of the case?
No.
I don't know, maybe. I'm not very good with names. Probably not.
I don't think I have.
It's very controversial.
How long did it happen?
Pardon?
When did it happen?
2009.
No, I haven't heard of it, as far as I'm aware.
Oh, carry on. Yes, the case is very controversial, and we are obviously at everything from the beginning and all of the evidence. And I am very curious at what you think happened, and whether you agree with certain people in the case or not. All right, stop teasing. Well, this is literally what we do. Okay, so
it's suspense.
Yes, dun. Reel you in. There you go. Awesome. So Kenzie Marie Houk was born 20th April 1982 in Newcastle, Pennsylvania, in the United States. She was a hairdresser, and obviously there isn't much information about her. Every article I read and the podcast I listened to, it's just not a lot out there. It's more about what happened to her and what followed.
Yeah.
But all the articles I've read and found quotes from her friends said that she was a very warm-hearted woman. She was, liked. And Kenzie had 2 daughters from previous relationships. A 4-year-old and a 7-year-old girl. And I'm not going to mention the names because they're so little. And some articles do, some articles don't. They choose not to. So.
Yeah.
It hasn't been that long ago, so I feel like it's just... It is said that Kenzie knew Chris Brown for some time before they started seeing each other romantically. And that happened in about late 2008. By the end of the same year, the pair got engaged and they were expecting a baby boy. And they were planning on naming him Chris after his father. But we're not talking Chris Brown, the singer Chris Brown. Okay, not Chris Brown. I think if we were, you would say
about this.
No. I can imagine it's a very popular name.
It's quite a common. Brown is a common surname.
And Chris is a very common first name as well. Yeah, that's true. Okay, sorry. Okay. So, Chris also had a 11-year-old child from a previous relationship with a boy named Jordan. And Jordan was born on August 12, 1997 in New Beaver, Pennsylvania. When Chris and Jordan's mother split up, they fought for custody. And apparently the fight was very hostile. Jordan's mother even accused Chris of abuse and drug use and some other stuff. Obviously, it's not known whether those claims were true or whether she just said it to get the custody of Jordan. But when it came to the verdict, Jordan's mother relinquished her parental rights and gave Chris full custody. Huh. What? Yes, I couldn't find a lot of information. So she fought him, and then she decided that actually no. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. Yeah, I found that very strange, but I didn't find a lot of information about it. That's suspicious. Yeah.
Which would be lying, wouldn't it, I suppose?
Then again.
So it would suggest that she was lying about the things she was saying about the father, almost?
Yeah, potentially, because I didn't find anywhere that it was proven.
Yeah, because why would you say those things and then just be like, oh, actually, you can have him? Like.
Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't know, would you? Yeah. You wouldn't be like, oh, he's a drug addict, he's an abusive parent, or he's an abusive partner, and then go, actually, given everything I said, never mind, you can have him. Yeah. Weird. Okay, that's weird. I wish I had a notepad to make notes. After Chris got custody of Jordan, it doesn't seem like the mother wanted to see Jordan him very, like she doesn't see him very often, as far as I can tell from what I've read. But on the other hand, Jordan and Chris were very close. They were both very outdoorsy people. They loved hunting. Jordan knew his way about with the guns and shotguns and all that, and even he had his own. He was more presents.
It is. I think being in like where we are, it's a difficult thing to sort of wrap your head around, isn't it? Like this obsession.
11-year-old with a gun.
I don't understand it, but then again,
no, I don't.
No, but
from what I can tell, he was only using it supervised with his father. And he had it. Yeah, he had it in his room. It still introduces that.
In his room? What? He had a gun in his room?
Yeah.
Did you say in his room?
Yeah, she said in his room.
Oh,
but this is it. Like, it still introduces, like, whether or not it was supervised, it still introduces violence and a weapon into a child's life, which I don't necessarily agree with.
I don't.
I know that some people have their own opinions about that, and and it's not something we have here. It's not something growing up. But we know that in America, everyone has a right to bear arms and just like to protect themselves. So yeah. So he was a very good shot, and he even won a turkey shoot the same year that the murder happened, and he won it against several adults as well. So wow, so he must have been really good. I mean, if he was growing up with guns and he's been allowed to, shoot them.
Yeah. What's Pennsylvania like? Is it kind of like a more rural area? Do you know? Pennsylvania. I want to have a look.
You have a look. I have no idea actually what kind of area it is.
Where do you say Newcastle, Pennsylvania?
No, so they actually live in a farmhouse in the rural western Pennsylvania. Wampum? It's Wampum. Who's that? Wampum. I don't know, but that's how it was rural. So I just sometimes wonder why people make up such hard to pronounce names.
What was it called? How do you spell it? Sorry.
Wampum.
Wampum. That kind of sounds like Native American, don't you think?
Yeah, a little bit. Wampum. Yeah, a little bit. So I'm just gonna carry on. You carry on.
I'll just research.
So they lived in a farmhouse, to which Kenzie moved in with her 2 daughters as well. Once they started seeing each other and got engaged and all that. According to Kenzie's mum, Betty Houk, Jordan often gave 26-year-old Kenzie a hard time, especially when his father wasn't around. And a quote from the Pennyville.com article: "It's been at least 2 months that he's made the threats," Betty Houk said, adding that Jordan just backed her, Kenzie, a lot when his dad wasn't around. Chris was good about it. He tried. He told him, "Don't you ever disrespect her," Betty Houk added as well. So he didn't like her. So according to Kenzie's family, yeah, there was some tension there, and potentially because it was just him and his dad, and then Kenzie comes in with 2 daughters, and then there's another baby who's going to be called Chris, a boy, potentially. Yeah, that's what we get from Kenzie's mum. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could understand that, couldn't you? Especially if it was just the 2 of them. His mum abandoned him, and then this other woman comes in.
Yeah, a whole new family to deal with.
Yeah, and he perhaps maybe never felt like he could be a part of that whole family.
Yeah,
and it might not necessarily be as wholesale as it seems. It might have just been a kid being slightly jealous or whatever. But it's hard to tell. It's what Kenzie's mum says and believes. Yeah, his attitude was. Yeah. Kenzie was already 8 months pregnant, and her and Chris were in the middle of prepping for the arrival of the new baby. So in this preparation, Jordan was to swap rooms with the couple. So he was to be moved I believe upstairs, and they were downstairs. So he was to be moved to master bedroom, and they were moving downstairs to a room that was next to what the child's room was going to be. So they would have been closer. So like nursery, yeah, that's what I was thinking. So we go into February 20th, 2009, and it seemed like a day like any other. Chris was running late for work, and Kenzie, being so far in her pregnancy and not sleeping well, asked him to stay home and help with the kids. However, Chris decided to go to work if they needed the income, like any family needs. Yeah. Especially because in America you don't get sick pay.
Yeah, you don't get maternity pay.
Or holiday.
Maternity.
Yeah, or maternity pay, yeah. Yeah, so he left around 6:45 a.m. Kenzie then got out and helped Jordan and her 7-year-old daughter get ready for school. And then kids leave the house to catch the school bus sometimes after 8 a.m. And that day, the tree trimmers were scheduled to work around the house, and they arrived around 9 a.m. Soon after that, one of the workers spotted Kenzie's 4-year-old daughter in the doorway of the house, and she was crying, and she was saying that her mum was dead. So immediately after that, the workers called 911 and attempted to console the little girl without entering the house, because obviously what she said, they were trying not to contaminate the crime scene. Yeah, poor little girl there. Oh, that's so sad. 4 years old. Yeah. So one of the workers instructed the child to go and get the blanket from the couch. So I'm guessing he saw the couch and he saw the blanket on the couch. And told her to come back to the door, and then he talked to her and tried to calm her down, sort of not scare her, but yeah. At 10:13 a.m., the state police officers arrived at the scene. Trooper Harry Gustafsson picked up the little girl and took her inside the house and sat her in front of the TV. So sort of took her out of the way. Yeah, basically just so she didn't concentrate on something other than her mum's dead body. Yeah, which is understandable.
You don't want to distress the kid any more than it's already been distressed.
No, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And you kind of need her out of the way so they can do all the forensics. So what initial checks of So upon closer inspection of the house, officers found Kenzie lying on her left side on the bed. They saw a very large pool of blood by her head and at her shoulders. Kenzie was shot in the head, execution style, while she was sleeping, so it appeared. And the TV in frame was on.
Christ. It's pretty dark, isn't it?
It's ruthless, isn't it?
Yeah, really. So she was asleep when it happened?
Yeah. I'm guessing they maybe not knew that straight away, but after.
Yeah, I mean, it's awful that it happened, but at least I guess she wasn't aware of it.
Yeah.
Not that it really
makes
makes it. Not that it like makes anything better, but at least she didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, I guess it takes away the last moments of her life being fear. You know? Yeah, she was just in fear. Unless she was having a nightmare. Yeah. So the officers immediately engaged in emergency ventilation measures until paramedics arrived. So, they tried to. But was she still alive? No, I don't think so. Everywhere I read, it doesn't seem. No, she was shot back up at the head. So she was. But I guess they just wanted.
I suppose given the circumstance, maybe they knew that.
Or maybe the baby, they wanted to keep the baby away. Like, not away, but obviously, like, alive. Yeah, that's what we did. However, soon after that, Kenzie and her newborn child were pronounced dead. That's so sad. So whilst the officers tried to resuscitate Kenzie, the school nurse called Kenzie's cell, requesting to speak to her. One of the police officers explained who he was, and he talked to the nurse who said that Jordan was in her office, not feeling very well and requesting to be sent home. And an officer asked the nurse to sort of look after Jordan because of what's happening. Don't think he told her what happened, but sort of said, you need to keep he can't come home, you need to keep him there until we make some arrangements to bring him. Well, to contact the dad, I guess. Yeah. So police then contacted Chris, who was already at work that morning in the shipping department of a tableware company. And I've got a quote here. They told me that she and the baby were gone, and I remember collapsing in the yard. Chris Brown told ABC News, and then he said, I lost it. Because just imagine, like, she asked him to stay. Obviously, it's not his fault, but she asked him to stay home. And had he stayed home, I mean, obviously, I don't know that's the story, but it probably wouldn't have changed much in the long term, but she would have probably still been alive. She could have. I mean, regardless of
it's just the shock of it as well. Like, imagine being told that. It's just awful.
It's not only your fiancé, it's your unborn child.
Your baby as well.
That you've been so excited to meet.
And so close to being born as well.
Which was awful. 8 months pregnant. Oh my god, that's. Yeah. Sorry, I just dropped my glasses. That's just a shock. It's just so sad though. Like, the baby hasn't even had a chance, and now 2 girls are
motherless.
Yeah. Oh, sad. So, police officer Wilson started interviewing the 4-year-old girl. However, she was in a state of shock and couldn't provide any coherent answers. I mean, she was 4.
Still a baby.
Yeah. And anyway, like, when you're in shock, you just forget stuff, don't you? And like, you can't really. It then probably comes back years later, like months later, weeks later, whatever. But at that particular time, especially being a child, not being able to comprehend what happens, you would.
It's just so sad. She would have got out of bed in the morning, probably been woken up by her mother usually, and then she would have woken up and been like, well, where's my mum? And then gone to look for her and found that. It's just so horrible, isn't it?
Yeah. Hopefully she doesn't remember it. She probably had a lot of therapy. So, next, Officer Wilson went to Houk Elementary School to interview Jordan and Kenzie's 7-year-old daughter. She arrived at the school around noon and was informed Jordan was asleep in the nurse's room due to his stomach ache. So I'm guessing he got some medication and just fell asleep. So she started interviewing Jordan's stepsister. Well, stepsister to be. At first, she thought she was in trouble. After a while, she calmed down and answered Wilson's questions. So I don't think at this point, obviously, they didn't tell her. I guess it's not their place to tell a child that her mum is dead. But then it's really weird to go and question a child. I don't know what without them knowing what they're being questioned about, and also question a child without parental.
That's strange.
That's very strange. Yeah, that is really bizarre. Well, how are you going to go and interview a child? Not tell them what you're interviewing them about. Just asking questions about that. Not having an adult present, someone that they know. Or anyone, basically. It seems like it was just them to maybe they had a witness, but it's not like that's weird. Yeah.
Maybe it's a different law in Pennsylvania.
It doesn't seem very. I know, but still not to tell her what it's about. But then again, she said like it's not their place. They should have waited for them to find out first. I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know because like if they don't know, they could like if they don't know what it's about, they could miss something that's important, but to them may not seem very important, and then they might not say it.
Yeah.
But they're kids. Yeah.
Mhm.
So after that, Officer Wilson spoke to Jordan. She also didn't inform him about Kenzie's death, but instead asked him if he was present at the house that morning and what happened and stuff. So Jordan said his mum, Kenzie, his two sisters to be, and himself, because obviously his dad left work and stuff. He added that, he added that his dad already left for work. And his younger sister was still asleep when he left for school. So the 4-year-old. Wilson then asked him if he had seen anyone strange around or any unknown vehicles that day. And apart from Kenzie's car, he said he saw a black pickup truck parked by the garage. And then Wilson pressed on more details about this, like asked more questions about this. And at the time, she believed the vehicle belonged to the killer, which it could have. Yeah. And Jordan just wasn't sure if the truck was running or if anyone was inside at that time on that first interview. And he remarked that it kind of looked like a car of the owner of the farm. He came around to feed the cows one of the times they do that. Right. Yeah, he then was asked about what he did that morning, and Jordan recounted that he got dressed and remembered rushing for the bus after Kenzie's told them to sort of hurry up and go because they're going to be late. And then he repeated about seeing the truck, and the interview ended at that point. So again, it seems like he was interviewed without any parents. And also didn't know what happened while he was interviewed as well. Okay. So I think it's important to point out that none of these interviews were recorded, and later the testimony was based on her 2 reports, which were prepared 6 days and 13 days after the interviews, respectively. So how does she remember? So those details I just said could have been completely incorrect and written down days after this. Yeah. How can you call that evidence? She could have fabricated stuff.
Is this because like the town is quite small and they're not used to dealing with this kind of stuff, do you think? So that's that classic sort of thing of the police being incompetent because they never had to deal with this kind of thing before.
But then should they need to? None of this can or should be used as evidence because it could be fabricated. She could have remembered wrong, could have said something different, and he's a kid. He's not really going to remember what he said. And it's literally just, she said this, like she wrote that, done this, and no, that's not right. But yeah, like you say, maybe just because it's a small town.
Yeah. But still, it's not on. All police should be like trained to the same level.
Like this is 2008. Like this isn't 1920s or whatever. Like this is 2008. Like murders happened by then.
Just fucking record what they're saying. There's like little things you can get to record. You have to like it's
it doesn't
the modern age, you know.
Unless you just make rough notes or something. Even then, like it's not accurate, is it? It's not accurate, even if it's notes. So she would paraphrased or just made like points. Yeah. So while this was happening, the police was also finding out about Kenzie's ex-boyfriend Adam Harvey. He had a history of making threats of violence against Kenzie, and at the time of the murder, her parents' sister. So at the time of the murder, Kenzie, her parents, sister, and brother-in-law had a permanent protection from abuse order against Harvey. So that restraining order. Yeah. And this order was stemming from an incident which occurred in February 2008, so a few months before. Harvey called Kenzie's mother and threatened to take her whole family out. Yeah. What a lovely
chat. So be your first suspect, wouldn't
you? Yeah, of course you would.
Be the first one. Yeah.
You're right. You'd be like, you'd be like, oh well, let's question him. But hopefully record their questioning. Yeah. So Harvey was sort of believed to be father of the 2 daughters. But apparently recently he had a paternity test done, and the younger daughter turned out not to be his. So I guess the anger stems from all of that, threats and all that. So not great.
No.
Harvey also owns Black Ford F-150 pickup truck. Convenient. Seems to be similar to the one Jordan saw around the house. And a few months after the February incident, I just said, a few months after that incident, he found out he was not biological father to Kenzie's youngest daughter. Moreover, on February 19, 2009, Harvey confronted Kenzie's parents in a nightclub where he had gone to pick up food. And this confrontation resulted in him being thrown out of the club. So actually, this whole thing is happening in 2009, not 2008. I do apologize. I've been saying 2008 this whole time.
It's around that time.
No, you've been saying 2009, 8. 2009, 8. So I just thought it was like spanning the year. Yeah, so 2009. And then days following, can I just check? You went to pick up food from a nightclub? Yeah, that's what I found. Yeah, but maybe it was just like food and then you
maybe it's like a pub type with a dance floor kind of thing, maybe.
Maybe. Do they have pubs in America, do they?
Yeah.
Is that
Inns?
Oh, inns. Yeah, no idea. Yeah. Okay, sorry, that just really struck me as really weird going to a club to pick up some food. Maybe clubs are diversifying and they do food. Yeah, you can get your milk and butter and...
From what I just saw of that, the town, it does look like it's, like, like kind of the place where Ed Gein was from.
Oh, okay.
I don't think it's as rural as that, but I think it's that kind of vibe, yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, maybe that makes a little bit more sense. That's fine. I'll let him off. Picking up food in a pub. It's probably a takeaway or something. Yeah, maybe. Not shopping. Yeah. I guess he could have been on the way to pick it up. They could have been outside the pub.
Is this relevant?
No, absolutely not. It's absolutely not relevant. Who knows? Oh, well,
We must know. We must find out.
Yeah, I need to make notes. I should find out that. Going on. Right, so, police officer was dispatched to find Harvey, and on the way to where he was staying, the officer spotted his truck at the intersection. Officer then approached the truck and asked Harvey to accompany him to the state police barracks for a talk. Harvey at the time was staying at his parents' house, which is 2 city blocks from the intersection he was spotted at, and it was about 10 minutes from where I got there, it was about 10 minutes away from the farmhouse where Kenzie was staying, living. Police officer noticed that his truck had a light coating of snow on the hood and roof, which important. So I don't have a notebook to make notes. I didn't realise we were doing a detective story. Well, kind of, I guess. Kind of.
Maybe we should just start doing notes from now on.
Yeah, maybe.
Or perhaps you can.
Yeah, I'll be presenting the case, making notes like they found light coating of snow. So they found light coating of snow on his truck. So during his interview, Harvey provided an alibi. He was in the basement of his parents' house since 10 p.m. the previous evening. And the only way to leave the house is through the upstairs floor where his father's was. So his father said he never saw him leave, so therefore he never left. Oh yes, okay, because people don't lie. But...
Yeah, and people don't go out windows or anything. Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, well, his dad said, so it must be true. Well, as alibis go, it's not very...
It's not the
solid. Well, just because your alibi relies on someone else telling the truth, it's not a very good alibi because people lie. Especially people related to you. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, but that's, that's what his alibi was, and as far as I know, that's where he was. Harvey's hands were tested for gunpowder residue, and it came back negative. Although I've heard that obviously in America, if you have guns or whatever, you can buy a soap that is specifically made for removing the gunpowder residue.
Is it to wash off then, is it?
I think it can stick. Apparently you can use antibacterial gels and stuff. I mean, when you go around your day, it wears off naturally. Anyway, but if you were to use one of those soaps or wash your hands thoroughly, I guess it would eventually as well. So it's not like it stay there for weeks with you doing it. Well, even touching things, you transfer it onto other things, sort of thing. Maybe people don't touch stuff. He was like this, so I don't know how you drive. Sorry, I don't drive. I don't touch stuff. Right, so based on all of the evidence, and the snow evidence, which is, it was to believe that if Harvey drove to Kenzie's house, then the snow would not be on his car anymore because the car would get warmer and the snow would melt or fall off or something. And based on all of that, he was excluded on the suspect. Could it be relish?
Okay. So they're excluding him based on that?
On snow, his alibi, and no gun. Yeah.
Okay.
Which, I get kind of, but also you have the restraining order, the alleged threats, and
that doesn't look good, does it?
And it's not like you can't rent a truck, and it is, he was in
fact. Trace of it though, isn't there?
Could have walked.
Yeah, people have seen him surely if he was walking.
Depends how thorough they investigate. Ideas here. Don't come to me with problems, I'm trying to come with solutions. Right, so whilst inspecting the house, the inspectors noticed all doors and windows were unlocked, and also the front door had blood on the frame. It was sent to the lab for forensic testing, but I found no further information on that. It apparently just didn't come out in the trial. I guess it was irrelevant. Maybe it was animal blood if they were hunting or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. Blue blanket with a hole was also found by the front door. It was believed at the time that it might have been used to muffle shotgun blasts. However, after testing it, no gunshot residue or blood was found on it. So it's just a random blanket next to the front door with a hole. But that's not that weird. I mean, blankets get holes in them. Yeah, it was I don't know what the blanket looked like or the hole what it looked like, but it might have been slightly suspicious that suspicious. So they tested it. Yeah, so it must have been weird enough for them to test. Or it just seems like a coincidence. But maybe they were like, we fucked up so much with questioning the kids, let's just test everything in the house.
Let's just do everything we can, yeah.
So police then proceeded to inspect the first floor of the house. They went into Jordan's room and found 6 long guns, which were partially covered in an orange blanket. So obviously he was in the middle of moving the room, so maybe that's why all these guns were in his room. 6 guns!
It's not unusual. What?
The kid had 6 guns, and he was in the room he was moving into slowly with 6 guns. Just propped by the on the wall covered in blanket, yeah. Oh wow, a magical blanket. Invisibility. Yeah, invisibility. What? Yeah.
Why would anyone need that many guns?
Because what if he went and played with them and like shot himself? I know he probably knew not to because he was shooting shotguns guns. I know, Joey. Okay,
Are they loaded as well? Like, can they loaded guns? Like, what?
I don't think they were loaded. Yeah, but you know some loaded gun. Yeah, but they were guns, not the shot, like the bullets and shots. Or in it. Is it medical shots? I don't know. I'm shells. The shells. But not shells, like full shells, because they were in shotgun. I don't know. Anyway, moving on.
I don't say much about guns.
Yeah, so any of our American listeners, if you want to correct us on our terminology and educate us a little bit more, feel free to do so, because we know nothing. I've never even seen a gun, so only on movies, not real, or a toy. So anyway, you've seen a gun?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure my grandpa had like one on his farm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He used to try and shoot rats with it.
I'm sure there's an easier way to get rid of
I just remember, like, because I lived really far away, I just remember as a kid, like, arriving after a really long journey, like, to see them, and he was just out in the, like, the conservatory with this, like, fucking shotgun or something trying to shoot the rats. And batter against them. I was like, what are you doing?
Die!
Just some traps. Doing.
Well, yeah, there's an easy way to do that. Yeah, poison. I don't know. It's not as fun though. So I don't know if I've ever shot a gun. Oh, I've liked it, I think. Go to a shooting range. See what the hype is about.
Yeah. No, I've got no interest in guns at all.
No, but like, just, you know. So paintballing. Paintballing. Oh, I've been paintballing.
No, see, I don't want to go paintballing.
It's terrifying. It's just scary as fuck. I want to go.
I couldn't do anything worse. If someone said to me we're going paintballing, I know we're fucking not. Like, I'm not
It's
doing
so scary because you know that they can't hurt you, but the fear of being shot, because it is quite painful, like it's really painful. I had like really bad bruises from it. Like the fear, it's not fun. I didn't like it. It felt like being hunted, and I didn't like that. And I was too scared to shoot anyone else, and I wasn't very good, so I was ended up hiding in your house. I kind of want to go. At least once. See what happens. Yeah.
No.
Oh, well, you're not coming with me.
Not doing it.
They're just going to run away. Or you can go and invite a bunch of kids and just shoot at them.
What? What did you say?
Maybe not kids, but just because they're not going to be very good. The people that are not going to be very good. I don't know, Joe. I don't know.
I'll just wait in the car. I'm like, you have fun.
Alright, well, we won't go. It's fine. Anyway, back to the case. Right, so officers obviously began to examine the rifles, making sure, like, checking if they were loaded, whether they were shot, used, I mean, if they were used recently and stuff like that. So one of the guns, a .20 gauge shotgun, no idea. One of the police smelled burnt gunpowder in the grate, and he pointed out to his colleagues who also smelt it. He also smelt it. He also observed that gunpowder residue in the grate and in the barrel. Oh, okay. So it's been used recently. Okay, yeah. Well, yeah. Then they just go hunting. So. Well, yeah. Both officers later testified that based on their experience with guns, that particular shotgun was recently fired. But both also stated that they are not experts and they couldn't scientifically prove when exactly the shotgun was fired. Because, look, I've read that you can't know when it was fired. If it was fired 3 days ago and left, you can still smell the gunpowder. It's still going to be on the gun. It hasn't been cleaned or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's any evidence at all. Not very helpful. Especially if it's a household of hunting. Like, and especially it's quite irrelevant then, isn't it, really? Yeah, especially a few days before that, Jordan won that turkey shoot as well. Yes, it's actually quite irrelevant. Yeah. But the gun was seized and sent for forensic examination anyway. I mean, they were doing their job. The gun was fired. It could have been potentially the murder weapon. And because of the discovery of the potential murder weapon in his bedroom, Jordan was re-interviewed at 10 p.m. the same day. Did they actually record that one, or? Probably no, I think it did. I don't know. Why record interviews of our suspects? I don't know. But obviously, up to this point, Jordan still wasn't informed of Kenzie's death. So prior to that interview, Chris took Jordan aside and told him that something bad has happened and Kenzie is no longer with them. And obviously, the baby isn't either. And of course, upon hearing this, Jordan started to cry, and he became very distressed and, like reacted like I assume you would react to bad news. Yeah. But that's okay, because he calmed down and the trooper Wilson with a colleague began to question Jordan. And this time his father was there, present as well. Okay. So Wilson described his demeanour as low-key. He was neither nervous, excited, or fidgety. I think probably in shock or numb. Yeah. Potentially, or just calm down completely and like was just wondering what they wanted to talk about. Or what they were going to ask or something. I don't know.
You don't know, do you? I mean, like, you don't know how you're going to react to a situation like that. And everyone's going to react differently.
Some people laugh when they hear bad news. Like, it's just, there's no perfect way to react. Right or wrong way to do it either. And just because people haven't got the reaction you expect doesn't mean that they're guilty. Hold on. Exactly. So Wilson asked Jordan about his guns and war guns he has, and he told her what he had, which I'm not going to list here. He also said that he only shoots his guns outside, and he went shooting with his dad last month, and also about the Turkish shoot he had like a few weeks or earlier. Wilson asked if he had fired a gun that morning, and Jordan said no. At that point, the interview ended. So I guess there were a couple more questions or whatever, but that was the gist of it. So at 3:30 a.m. the next day, 21st February 2009, the grieving father and son were awakened by police pounding on the door. The officers had a warrant to arrest 11-year-old Jordan and charged him with the murder of Kenzie and her unborn son. And during his arrest, Jordan was wearing the cozy hat on school the previous day. What's the reason? What evidence do they have? Well, there was a gun that was shot in his room. He can shoot guns.
This is really bizarre, isn't it?
He didn't particularly maybe like Kenzie and was a bit mean to her.
That doesn't mean he's going to shoot.
That's not. Where's the there is no why did
logic.
you do it? Why did you do it then?
No.
What? I don't have it written down, but it's 11 years old. I mean, I know kids can kill, but I feel like it just seemed very rushed.
Yeah,
It's not
like we need
he
to
was
just
a
skip this
serial
on
killer.
somebody. Yeah.
Whether he'd done it or not, it's not like he was any danger. It didn't seem like it. It's, I
Mm.
don't know why it had to be the next day. Oh my god, so early in the morning. Terrified.
11 years old.
What? Okay. I'm not sure whether that happened at this point as well or the day before, but they also, when they interviewed a 7-year-old daughter of Kenzie again, a few times, and she, the first 2 interviews didn't incriminate Jordan. She was saying nothing horrible didn't happen, anything like that. And then the next 2, she apparently said that she had a bang before they left for a school bus, and she saw Jordan throw something out before they, like on the way to the bus board. Before
She hasn't mentioned that before.
She hasn't mentioned that before. So whether she was this after or before he was arrested, I'm not sure. I just remember that.
Did they record any of these interviews?
Well, I don't know. But she never testified at the trial.
I'd be interested to hear like the questioning tactics. You know, like how they
whether they were leading her on or feeding her information. Because the first 2, that is some people say that's what might have happened because this is why we need an adult present and you need to be recording this interview as well. Yeah, done those
you can actually easily say to the child, oh, and did you hear a bang? And they're like, oh yeah, actually, I think I heard a bang.
Yeah, because kids want to be helpful as well. Like, you want to be helpful to find out who killed her mum. Yeah, kids and you can ask suggestive questions. Was Jordan acting weird that morning? And if you just find out Jordan, then eventually she might. Yeah. So.
Although Jordan was only 11 years old when he was arrested, he was charged as an adult. In Pennsylvania, anyone 10 or older charged with homicide automatically starts in adult court.
But he's not an adult.
That's the law.
It's
But
strange.
well,
it's wrong.
Yeah.
It's so odd.
He's not an adult.
Defense
No.
attorneys can petition to move such case to juvenile court, but it starts out in adult court, which makes no sense.
Why is juvenile court existing if they're not trying children as children? Like, just
And also, who came up with a 10 to be a cutoff before? Like,
Right. If he's an adult at 11 years old, can he drive? No.
Yeah.
Can he drink alcohol? No. Can he rent a house? No.
he can own.
No.
Well, you do.
No, the gun was probably registered inside. I'm just kidding. Sorry, I just put Mordens rather than Jordans, and I was just very confused. So Jordan's lawyer has done so. He has petitioned to move the case to juvenile court, obviously. However, presiding judge Dominic Motta of the Lawrence County, Pennsylvania Common Pleas Court initially denied this decertification and transferred to juvenile court because Jordan would not admit his involvement in the crime. Therefore, he can't be rehabilitated because juvenile courts focus on rehabilitation and making them ready to lead a normal life. But because he didn't admit to the murder, he didn't deserve.
it's like a
he deserved
paradox.
any
It's like a
So he had
cycle.
to incriminate
Yeah.
himself before he gets a fair trial to be found guilty, obviously, because he already said to get a lesser sentence, essentially, and be rehabilitated.
I'm sorry.
facing life in prison and potentially death penalty.
But what a fucking load of bollocks.
It makes no sense.
Yeah, it really
No, that
does.
makes no sense. So far, they haven't really convinced me that he's done it. So
No, same. That's what I was just about to say. I'm not convinced he did it so far.
there must be, like, unless they come with some concrete evidence here, then they've just basically wanted to convict
So
someone
far,
when
I'm
you have
thinking
an
it's the
11-year-old
ex-husband or
boy.
ex-boyfriend or whatever, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Bit alibi.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so we're going to exclude the ex-boyfriend because his dad couldn't possibly lie. But we're going to convict an 11-year-old that happened to have guns in his room and also went to a competition and shot a gun. But, you know, and we coerced the 7-year-old to give us a confession to corroborate our story. But, you know. So
Like, was he known as like a kid that was a troublemaker or anything? Had he ever?
Not that
other than like
Yeah.
Kenzie's mum saying that he was trouble to Kenzie.
Yeah, not that I didn't find anything. He was just a normal kid as far as
Which
can
I know
tell.
isn't always an indicator, but
Yeah.
So far, I just don't. I don't
I'm
know.
not-
It doesn't sit
yeah.
right with me so
no, it doesn't.
far.
I mean, yeah, it didn't. They arrested him after 1 day, so I don't know what.
Yeah, a great investigation.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, after Pennsylvania Superior Court ruled that Judge Motto violated Brown's Fifth Amendment rights, Judge Motto recused himself from the case, and Judge John W. Hodge granted the decertification petition and ruled that Brown should be tried as a juvenile. So,
Because he is.
so basically, it's just because Fifth Amendment rights is that right to
Fair trial, I think.
silence.
I don't know. Fifth Amendment. Oh yeah, to not
To not
implicate yourself.
incriminate
To
yourself.
not incriminate yourself.
Yeah, something like that. And because of
It
that,
is a Fifth Amendment right is a form of privilege set out in the Fifth Amendment that gives an individual the right to refuse to answer any questions or make any statement that could be used in a criminal proceeding to help establish that person committed a crime. So basically, him saying, "Yeah, I did it," is
yeah,
what?
yeah, makes no sense. But apparently, Jordan was put in a temporary like holding that is suitable for only staying there for like a few days or a couple of weeks or something. But because of that petition to move it to juvenile court, it took years, and he was still he was in a facility that wasn't prepared to hold someone for such a period of time. But it happened anyway, because it took so long to decide whether he's going to be judged.
So he's not found guilty at this point, but yet he's still
No.
being detained for years.
Yes. So he's being detained. It's just basically whether he's going to be trialed as an adult or as a juvenile at this point. Nothing.
There was like
else
no
happened.
bail set on him or anything.
Not that I found. Unless it was very high and they couldn't afford it or something. But not that I found. It just seems like they just arrested him and that was it. And he was
Shit,
he was he was
held for a crime and they've not been found guilty, and you can just be held for years. What?
It shouldn't be allowed though.
No.
They should have a certain
Time frame.
and it should have been like
That if they can't find evidence to prosecute you for the crime, then clearly there isn't enough evidence to prosecute you for the crime.
But don't they have a right to a speedy trial, like within a reasonable time or something like that? Isn't that like a thing?
It is a
or
thing,
something?
but there's probably loopholes to go around that.
But there's
you
another
know.
thing, like he was detained like miles away from where his dad lived, and you would have to travel so long to see Jordan and like be with him, and he lost his job because obviously he was there as often as he could and stuff. So
he didn't believe his son had done it then.
No. I think I have it somewhere here in my report later on, but no. Chris was very against Jordan being the murderer. Like he didn't. Apparently, they had
which is
told him
quite
he asked him and Jordan said no and stuff like that. So he believed.
Which is quite
himself.
telling, isn't it? Because if he had been
Yeah.
showing signs of doing, like, being really against the stepmother, you as a parent, you'd be like, okay, actually, he probably could have done this. Yeah.
But then on the other hand, maybe he loves him so much, he's trying to protect him and
Yeah,
sort of,
perhaps.
Possibly.
or
But-
is in denial. There's a lot of things, but yeah,
Yeah.
what I can say, he believes Jordan and he's behind Jordan, and
Yeah.
he, you know,
Okay.
at this point it is what it is, but you know, he's going to be trialed in juvenile court, so that's good. But on the other hand, Kenzie's family wanted Jordan to be trialed as an adult. They believe the killing was calculated, and they accused him of threatening to pop, in quotes, Kenzie and her daughters at least 2 months before the killing. They called him a skilled shooter who understood the consequences of pulling the trigger. And I quote, "There's no kid in him," said Jack Houk, Kenzie's father. "He was a miserable child," said Jennifer Craner, 32, the Kenzie's sister. "We tried to love him, but there was some sort of issue."
No, what happened here is they convinced themselves that he did it and they just want someone punished for Kenzie's murder, which is fair,
They're hurting,
but
obviously.
Yeah. It's a child's life.
yeah.
Yeah, from everything that I saw, they truly believe Jordan did it.
Really.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So to go back to the day Jordan was arrested, later that same day, which was 21st February 2009, outside of the house and surrounding areas, it was all searched. And not far from the residence around the porch area, police found and I quote, "very rusty, spent shotgun shell." As they walked further down the driveway in the direction of the road, they discovered a second spent shell, which matched potential murder weapon, which the weapon they thought was used. And then later in the trial, officer testified that the second spent shell was in pristine condition. So it was basically like newer than the first one they found.
And how long after was this from the murder?
The next day.
Yeah, the next day.
Next day.
But
So obviously it wasn't the rusty.
Yeah.
again, you know, they hand the shells are bound to be on the properties. Surely.
Exactly,
Like,
because
yeah.
they are a
Guns on
hunting
the-
family.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And again, just
don't think that's much of an
No.
evidence, really. Jordan's clothing was tested for gunpowder residue. There were 2 spots where it was found, right side of his shirt. No idea how big the actual spot was. And then on the left leg of his jeans. And forensic experts testified at the trial that there are 3 possible ways that could have gotten there. The person could have discharged the firearm or been in close proximity to somebody else who discharged the firearm, or they came into contact with something that had gunshot residue on it.
what, like the guns that were in his room?
Yeah.
Yeah, the expert also testified that gunpowder particles can have an enduring presence on articles. So if you fire a gun, take your clothes off and put them in the corner, after a day, week, month, you can still find gunshot residue on them. So if he wore them previously while he was hunting and then wore them too.
Which isn't probably that unlikely being an
No.
11-year-old boy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So by contrast, the expert explained that a person who fired a gun and then went about the day naturally completing daily tasks would remove gunshot residue from their hands. Moreover, the expert said she would expect more particles of gunshot residue deposited on someone who fired a gun inside as there is no of them. So if he shot Kenzie in the room,
There would have been more.
yeah, he should have been covered in it. Also to add, Jordan's clothes were tested for blood and none was found. No DNA or fingerprints were found on the spent shotgun shells that were found. And also no blood was found on the shotgun itself.
Sorry, you guys froze for a minute there.
Oh, okay.
What's the last thing you heard?
Just talking about how he probably couldn't have shot it indoors because of there not being enough residue.
Yeah. So they tested his clothes for blood, and they didn't find anything. They didn't find any DNA or fingerprints on the shotguns they found around the house.
Okay.
And also there was no blood found on the shotgun itself, which if she was killed like execution style, so the gun would have been so close to her head, potentially the blast from that.
Yeah.
Like it would have been on him potentially.
Yeah, of course
Yeah.
it would. On the gun. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I assume
Mm-hmm.
it's master and stuff, but I don't know. During the trial, Chris, Jordan's father, testified. He said that Jordan's relationship with Kenzie was good, just like with her own daughters was. So it was, she was like a loving
Mother.
becoming a loving mother to him. Potentially.
Yeah.
That's what his dad said. So again, that contradicts to what her family is saying.
There could have been like a little bit of conflict there though, but then I think that's just probably normal with like step parents, isn't it? Like it doesn't mean like that person's gonna like lose their shit and
murder their stepmom.
Like kids play up, especially to like a person that's not actually their parent.
Yeah, exactly.
So the actual trial took place in April 2012. So 3 years, just over 3 years after the murder happened.
And he was just held.
He would have been like
Jordan
14 by this point.
years old at that point.
15.
Okay, so following 3 days of the testimony, Judge Hodge issued his ruling on April 13, 2012. It was no jury trial, so it was just the judge. And also the public and media couldn't attend the trial either.
Because he was a juvenile.
Yeah, so the judge decided for them not, like they can't do it.
No jury because he's a juvenile. Is that right?
I guess so. Maybe. I guess so. I don't know.
But to me, that's not really a fair trial, though,
No,
is
it's
it?
not. I don't think
it's one person deciding your fate
Yeah.
instead of 12 people with different views and stuff. I don't know.
Probably because they knew that their case wasn't strong enough to stand up against 12 jurors.
Maybe.
Probably. Yeah.
But on April 13th, 2012, Judge Hodge issued the ruling that Jordan was responsible for first-degree murder and the death of 26-year-old Kenzie, and a homicide in the death of her unborn male child. Judge Hodge adjudicated Jordan Brown to be delinquent, which in juvenile court means it's just equivalent to a guilty verdict. Judge Hodge would announce Brown's disposition, which is the equivalent of juvenile sentence, at a later date, which I couldn't find what he decided, but under Pennsylvania law and Pennsylvania law, adjudicated juvenile offender cannot be held in custody past his 21st birthday anyway. So
that's still a long time. That's still 6 years. Plus the 3 years.
Yeah.
Like your formative years, isn't it?
Yeah. So Brown could be held in a juvenile rehabilitative treatment facilities only until he turned 21 in August 2018. Jordan, who'd been in custody throughout the investigation and trial, was eventually sent to George Junior Republic Juvenile Detention Center in Grove City, Pennsylvania. And during his
Incarceration.
Jordan taught himself to play guitar and said he became a pretty good basketball player, and obviously he kept up with his studies and he was fairly okay.
Trying to keep himself busy.
Based on the circumstances he was doing it in and stuff. On June 13th, 2016, more than 7 years after his arrest, Jordan Brown was released from juvenile custody 2 months before his 19th birthday. So Judge Hodge put Brown on probation in the custody of an uncle who lived in Ohio, just across the border from Lawrence County. So I'm guessing for good behavior, and he was
Why
rehabilitated
didn't he
at
go
that
to
point.
his dad? Is it because he had the other 2 girls?
No, the girls are being raised by the grandparents because it's not
Not his children.
they
Yeah.
weren't married.
So why didn't he go to his dad? I don't know. Perhaps maybe he was just in a better situation to hold
Maybe
Jordan, like to take care of Jordan.
Maybe potentially because obviously, as I mentioned, Jordan's father, when he was trying to go and visit him, he lost his job, and I'm guessing throughout the years he tried to help his son. So maybe the financial strain on that part, like lawyers and stuff, he wasn't able.
Yeah, maybe.
Wasn't
I
able
just
to.
wondered. I
I
just
don't
thought it
know.
was.
I don't know. I didn't even touch that really. So he was to remain on juvenile court probation until he turned 21. His lawyers also continued to file appeals in order to have his juvenile conviction overturned. And 2 years later, that resulted in the July 2018 Pennsylvania Supreme Court ruling. So Supreme Court overturned Jordan's conviction in a 5-0 decision. The justices attacked the evidence as insufficient and said that the juvenile trial evidence pointing to a shotgun in Brown's bedroom as the murder weapon supported an equally reasonable conclusion that it was not the murder weapon. There was no DNA or fingerprint evidence linking Jordan to the murder, the Supreme Court said. The court concluded that the forensic evidence and witness testimony were consistent with 2 possibilities. A known person entered the house and killed Kenzie after Jordan and his stepsister left for school, or Jordan, in a full view of his stepsister, walked upstairs, got his gun, retrieved shotgun shells that were located in the room where Kenzie was, and then shot her, wiped his gun and returned it upstairs before running off to catch his bus. All that without his sister,
So obviously impossible.
No,
Yeah.
it just seems very improbable, doesn't it?
You just get
in cold
sorry,
blood.
this sort of say, like, if you shot somebody, you're going to get blood on you.
Yeah,
If you're shooting
and then
that point blank range, you're going to get blood on you. You just are.
And then the evidence, regardless of whether he did it or not, the evidence is insufficient to beyond reasonable doubt convict him of the murder.
Yeah.
Like, whether he did it or not.
I think that's what would have.
And the-
That's what jury would have
And
found.
and the
But because it
court's
was just
job.
one person, they like the
Yes.
case that the prosecution
Yeah.
presented.
And the court's job isn't to find the truth. The court's job is to, beyond a reasonable doubt,
Based on
convict.
the evidence.
Based on the evidence provided, convict the defendant. And in that case, there was not enough evidence. There just wasn't. It was circumstantial evidence that they found.
Yeah, completely.
So also Jordan's lawyer said that if the court had reversed the decision solely on the weight of the evidence, Jordan would be entitled to a new trial. But reversing on the insufficiency is a game changer. And I quote, because the court reversed the case based on the insufficiency of the evidence, the case is over, there's no new trial. The case is discharged, the verdict is overturned, he said. There's no new trial and he's been fully vindicated. That's the significant. He said double jeopardy attaches to the decision, meaning Jordan can never be charged with, again, in Kenzie's murder.
So, I mean, they could have fucked it, really, and maybe he did it, maybe he did.
Yeah.
They can't never charge him again because they didn't properly investigate the murder in the first place. Whoever killed her, you just got away with it. Because all the evidence they tried to point to Jordan, so now they probably lost anything that they would have had because they didn't search further.
Yeah.
So like, this kid did it, so let's try and fit the evidence around it, not objectively look at the evidence. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially because it seemed like some of the evidence came from Kenzie's daughter, which she didn't even testify in a trial.
Yeah.
And maybe if she did, that later, decision on insufficiency of the evidence, it might have not happened. But because that never happened.
Yeah. But even her testimony can't really be trusted because she was interviewed quite a few times without a psychologist present, and she probably wasn't interviewed by specialists at interviewing kids, so she could have been easily swayed. So even that probably wouldn't have. And if she's being looked after, Kenzie's parents, they're obviously very anti-Jordan, so they
Biased,
Yeah, that's true. So I've got
Yeah.
a quote here from Jordan and Chris as well. So I was happy. Finally, it felt like a big weight had been lifted off of me. It had been a nightmare for 9.5 years. That was Chris, Jordan's father. I'm 100%, you know, a whole clean slate. Everything is gone, and that made me happy. Finally, the truth finally got out. Jordan's father is still angry about what happened to his son, and Jordan, on the other hand, said they have mixed feelings. And I quote, "It used to bother me all the time. I used to hate it, but then I got to the point where it didn't bother me at all. I didn't care. But now I'm kind of like, I'll go back and forth sometimes, I think," he said. Which, understandable, because he's been, you know, exonerated. He's been found innocent.
Be happy to just be out of there as well, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you'd be happy to be out of there, but also at the back of your mind, you'd be like, I've
wasted 9.5 years
almost
of
10
my life.
years being thought to be this horrible monster that
And lost
killed
his
a pregnant-
family, lost like his sisters, like his stepsisters to be, you know, like, we would have lost a lot of things, and this shit sticks. So regardless of whether he's been exonerated, wherever
There's
he
always
goes
going to be
now,
people
Google
that are
his
going to.
name and
Yeah.
all of that comes up.
Yeah.
You know, everyone knows his face. It was very a popular case in that area because obviously of the age of his age when it happened. So everyone knows what he looks like, you know. Jordan Brown, who was attending college and studying computer science, is determined to leave his past behind and prepare for brighter days ahead.
That's good.
Yeah. On the other hand, I don't have it written down. Don't know why. I found it, read it, and then I lost it. But I remember it slightly. Kenzie's family obviously is devastated about the verdict being overturned, because Kenzie's father said that, you know, Kenzie's mother, she is in shock that she when it all came obviously to a conclusive end, she was not in a good state, that he was afraid he would have to take her to hospital. They were devastated.
I can understand that. Like, I absolutely
can.
can understand that, because they thought they got justice for their daughter, they got some sort of closure from that, and they thought that the person that had done it was behind bars. But I can't sympathise with them very much, because I think everyone's entitled to a fair trial and everyone's entitled to a fair investigation, and he didn't receive that. The trial was not fair, the investigation was botched, like, there wasn't enough evidence. They arrested him after a day after the murder. Like, it just wasn't, they wanted it to be him, they found that, you know, some of the evidence fits, and they were like,
I mean, from what you've given us here, I would say he didn't do it, you know.
Yeah, and obviously I don't have everything
that
happened, obviously,
but clearly there must have not been sufficient evidence, because the conviction got overturned.
Supreme Court. So I assume Supreme Court is made up of 5 judges.
Yeah.
And they all decided that it was insufficient evidence. Yeah, so I've got here an article from WPXI.com saying that, titled "Lawsuit Claims Evidence Fabricated in Case of a Man Exonerated in Pregnant Stepmother's Murder." So in 2020, it seems like Jordan and his lawyers filed a lawsuit against 4 former troopers of the Pennsylvania State Police, and then there's commissioner of that police for wrongfully convicting him. So according to the lawsuit, former troopers Wilson, Martin, McGraw, and Steinhauser, as well as former Commissioner Frank Pavlovsky, fabricated evidence against Brown. The lawsuit claims the only evidence against Brown was coerced and fabricated statement, and that was in quotes, of his soon-to-be stepsister, who was 7 years old at the time. So basically, that was the only really legit evidence they had.
And she had to be questioned 4 times to give them that evidence.
So she was, it says here, she was interviewed 4 times in 14 hours after her mother's death.
What?
4 times, 14 hours after finding
that's in the day. That's in the same, that's not even over span of a few days. That's one day they interview her 4 times. And eventually, as a child, you would be like, oh, what do you want me to say for this to stop?
Yeah, it's like interrogating suspects. So according to the lawsuit, 2 statements did not show that Brown was guilty, and the others, and I quote, were built on lies that were fed to her by the investigators, and she never testified under oath at the trial anyway. And I quote, people will believe what they want to believe, but Jordan was innocent. He lost his entire youth being wrongfully convicted of a crime he didn't commit. That was one of his lawyers that said that.
I just don't understand how people can like believe someone's done something when there's just no evidence to say.
Exactly.
I physically don't understand. It's like the Amanda Knox thing. Like personally, I don't think she did. Like, are you aware of this case?
Yeah,
I don't think she did it.
No, but again,
but there's so many people that do.
But it's because they made her a scapegoat.
Oh my god.
Like, it was like a modern day witch hunt.
You can watch the documentary on Netflix. It's really interesting, actually.
I just don't understand people that believe this shit when there's just no evidence. Because they just want it to
be true.
And just to finish this off, according to the article, Channel 11's Amy Marcinkiewicz, I don't know why I can't say that. Amy Marcinkiewicz reached out to Houk's family, so Kenzie's family, and her mom said she doesn't care what Brown's next steps is. She believes he killed her daughter.
Well, I believe she's wrong.
I do.
Based on what you've presented,
and what we know here,
I believe she's wrong.
I understand though. I kind of do. I mean,
no, of course, because you'd want to think that your daughter got justice, and now because the police didn't do a good enough investigation, they probably will never know they murdered her. Well, no.
It seems to me, when I was researching the case, it seemed that they investigated for about 2 days and then arrested him. And then 3 years was the fight between adult or juvenile court, and then there was a trial, 3 days trial, and that's it.
I just don't think
basically it.
He didn't have a fair trial, and he just never really had a chance because they wanted to find him guilty, and then they just were willing to spin any story to get him convicted.
Yeah, completely. That's what I think. Yeah.
Like, it's plausible that someone just came in and murdered her. And it is plausible that her ex-partner did that, because just because he didn't use his truck to get there, and just because Jordan thought he'd seen the truck, like, this doesn't mean anything, really.
Yeah, I know. It's just,
they could have just as easily stuck the case on him as they did on Jordan.
Maybe it would have been easier for, one side or the other to believe what happened if they did a proper investigation.
I just think they've literally ruined his childhood.
Oh this is why he's suing, and I don't blame him.
I don't blame him. He might be suing the shit out of everyone.
Stole his childhood. They literally stole his childhood.
Yeah, and like we said, although he's been exonerated, that will stay with him forever. Wherever he applies for a job, they'll look him up. That's what they'll find.
Yeah,
and because they haven't actually found who's done it as well, there's always going to be that like ambiguousness of he could have done it.
There's always
who else who did it, so he did it.
Believe him, and there's also always going to be people that think that he didn't got away with it. Well, got away with it. He basically,
he technically served his time anyway.
Basically, he was released 2 years before his 21st birthday. He didn't be called,
and that was on probation anyway.
Yeah, so
God. I can see this case dividing rooms though in half.
Yeah.
Some people
Yeah,
think he
same.
did it, and some people think he
Especially
didn't.
because Kenzie's family is so
Convinced that
adamant that he did it.
Yeah, but I just think it's because they were giving a beacon of hope that they got justice for their daughter, and then that got taken away, and there was no one else provided in their place. I'm just not. I just want to know whether them blaming or thinking he killed her, whether that was from the get-go or whether it was
It was when
after
it's
he was
suggested
arrested.
to them.
And- Because
Yeah.
I can't imagine them finding out that she's dead and the
And
first
going,
thought
"It's
that,
Jordan."
oh, it's Jordan.
Yeah.
Instead of going to ex-boyfriend.
Mm.
They
Yeah.
actually threatened everyone in her family and
Mm.
had a restraining order against her. It's just.
And he's maintained his innocence throughout, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, as it stands, I would say I don't think he did it.
I mean,
No.
in a court of law, he didn't do it. He's innocent.
Yeah, but regardless of the court of law, I don't think he did it.
No. With everything that we know and with the
Yeah.
evidence, I don't think he did it.
No. Same.
No, I can't imagine him being 11 years old, and it would have to be with premeditation as well, because he would have to go upstairs, get his gun, and then go downstairs, get his shells and loaded it, and just.
I don't know. Like, I could believe that he did it because kids kill, so I could believe that he did it. But the evidence just isn't there because he would have been covered in blood. How did he get to school? How did his sister not see him? Where did he put the clothes that were covered in blood? Like, how did he clean the gun? Like, in the time that it took him to do all that and then also make it to school on time, like, it just doesn't add up. Like,
And
it
being
just.
that age as well, you know, when you like these child killers as well, they tend to always like crack and just spill the story of what happened. Like, I can imagine not every single time, but a lot of the ones that we've come across, they've always admitted it, haven't they? They crumble under questioning.
Yeah, and also there's always those weird things that happen, like before the murders. There's always like people always, there's always some sort of indicator that something weird was going to happen.
Yeah.
Whereas just being a moody child doesn't mean that you're going to kill someone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that was really interesting, Joe.
Yeah, so
It
that's the case, and it would be awesome if you want to let us know what you think.
Yeah, let us know your thoughts.
If you have any evidence as to the contrary of us thinking that he didn't do it, then I'd be interested to hear that as well.
Maybe there was more, and I just didn't find it.
Oh, it's going to be like that meme, where people are like, there's this guy sitting behind the desk, and it's like,
Change my mind.
Change my mind. Yeah. So if you've got evidence to contrary, or you've got a counter argument or whatever, feel free to get in touch. We'd be really curious to hear it and
like a good debate.
From what I've never heard of this case. I'm assuming it wasn't that well. It wasn't something that sort of travelled across the pond, as it were. It's not something we heard about over here.
No. I only saw it on Facebook. That girl's got like a crime channel, and I watch her videos sometimes, and I get inspiration sometimes. When I don't know what I want to cover, so that's how I feel about it. But it's very interesting.
Yeah. Well done, Joe.
Thank you.
Well done.
So as I said, thanks for listening. Rate us, review us, message us, like us.
Yep.
Check out our Instagram, our YouTube.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I have nothing else to add, so
thanks, guys.
Thanks and bye.
It's a goodbye from me.
It's a goodbye from me.
Bye.
Bye.